Hey everyone, and welcome to the third video of my YouTube series. I'm going to be going into the basics of modeling today, and this means I'm not going to be completing the model today, but I will show you how to start modeling and all the important shortcuts you can do in Blender, as well as how to decompile the required items for you to begin modeling. So at the very beginning, I want to open up GCFscape. That'll be the first thing you want. What you want to do is you want to find the flare gun model. You would go into Team Fortress 2 materials.gcf TF models. It'll be under weapons because it's a weapon. It'll be under C models, and you just scroll down until you see C flare gun pyro. Double click that, you'll see all these different files, the .mdls, and the .phys, and the .vtx and bvds. You want to take all of these and you want to place them into a folder. I have the folder flare gun. It's best just to name it after the folder you're going to be using, and you want to put it in the input folder. I've already done so here, but make sure you have something pretty organized. You can organize it however you like, but that's the way I organize. After you do that, you can exit out of the GCF. There's no need for it anymore, and go into the model decompiler fix that I mentioned in the last video. What you do with the decompiler fix is you browse until you find the .mdl file in the folder you chose. So in this case, you know, it's the input folder there. And you select that. And you come over here to your output directory, and I usually choose the name of the folder. So you come over here and you just choose the name of the folder that you're going to be using, which is flare gun with the upper level folder of input. So select that, and then you just hit extract. And what that does is it'll load the model, and it'll dump the model. If it says completed dumping model, you're fine. If it does not say that, however, you will have to go to Steam and open up your let me pull it up real quick. Your source SDK. So you just open this up, and you can close it immediately after it opens, and you'll be fine. The source SDK contains all the things that these sort of programs need to run off of, so if they don't seem to work initially, try opening up the source SDK first. So after you finish doing that, you can exit out of the decompiler, and, oh, that's not the right one, flare gun. Okay, and you want to come over here. Now you've got all these different files. Most of them are .smds, and then you got this one QC file. The QC file, do not delete it. It is one of the most important files you've got. If you open it up here, you'll see you've got all these different things happening in the file. See, I opened it up with Notepad++, one of my recommended programs, but you know, you could use just regular Notepad if you feel like it, or whatever text editor you use. So after you do that, you pull this open, and you can find these different names and everything. The LODs are the level of details. That's if the model has a lower poly version of the model, it'll show that at longer distances instead of rendering the entire model. Usually you want to make a couple of these. I'm not actually going to be making some for this tutorial, or at least I'm not going to show you how to make them in this tutorial quite yet. So I'm not going to go too much into these, but as you can see, this is how you would make 3 different levels of detail, 1, 2, and 3. The character models have 6 levels of detail, and some other weapon and hat models only have like 1 or 2 levels of detail. Valve recommends that you have some levels of detail when you submit your item, so you got to think about that, and I will go over that later-ish. So with that, open up Blender, and you'll come up to a screen that has a cube on it. The cube in this case is usually in perspective mode, like so. And this cube is going to be what you usually start off with in Blender. I usually like going into isometric view instead of perspective. By hitting numpad 5, you can change between the two of them. I like isometric because it kind of shows the no BS version of the model instead of, you know, this weird perspective view that kind of skews everything you see. I mean, this is going to be what you see in Team Fortress 2 is the way this looks like. But to me, I don't really like it that way. So I've got the isometric view going on. To switch between object mode and edit mode is going to be the mode you're going to be in the most. You just press tab. So tab will switch between the two. You can switch between what particular points, faces, or edges you select by clicking down here. You have the vertex select, allows you to select a single vertex like so, and you can, change that. You've got the edge select, so you select a single edge, and again, you can change that. And you've got face select, which allows you to select a single face, and you can change that. But I'm going to go into some of the very handy shortcuts you will be using when making items. The first one I'm going to be showing you is the grab tool. You simply activate that by pressing G, and you'll be able to grab it and move it around in 3D space. It usually moves along the plane of your particular perspective at that moment. So see where I am, it'll move along a two-dimensional plane where I am looking. So you've got to be wary of that. If you want it to move along a particular axis, the X, Y, or Z axis, you press the corresponding letters. So to move along the X axis, you press X, and it'll lock it to the X axis, and you can move it along that. To move it along the Z axis, you press Z, and move it along the Y axis, you press Y. If you want to cancel, you can right-click, but I need to show you why right-clicking can sometimes be a bad thing, and I would recommend Control-Zing every single time, regardless. If you did something you didn't want to do. So that's the grab tool. The grab tool is very useful for moving UV maps and different particular portions of your model. To select your vertices, you simply right-click on it, and it'll select one of the vertices you select on, or the face or the edge. To select multiples, you can shift right-click, and it'll add multiple faces. As you can see, those 3 faces are selected, but the other 3 are not. And to simply unselect them, you can right-click on another face, or you can press A. A can select all vertices in the field of view, or deselect all vertices, depending on whether or not you have vertices selected. If you have a vertice or face selected, you press A, it'll deselect them. If you have none selected whatsoever, you press A, it'll select all of them. So that's a very important one to remember if you want to change what you're selecting immediately. Another one you want to look at is the scale tool. The scale tool will scale up or down a particular face or edge, but it will not work on a vertice, so just remember that. To scale it, you press S, and it'll scale up or down. And that's a very useful tool because scaling up or down can greatly help certain aspects. So as you can see, this is, not a cube anymore, but I can simply undo that. To show what it does to a vertex, select a vertex, scale. As you can see, nothing's really going on. But again, I'll always undo that whether or not I actually did anything. The next one that is important to note is the rotate tool. So select an entire face like so and press R to rotate. So you can rotate it simply like so, left and right. And it gets kind of weird if you rotate it too much, and it'll go back to normal. But again, Control-Z if you never want to see those messing up with anything. The next thing that is extremely helpful is the extrusion tool. The extrusion tool will create new faces along every edge and take the current face and move it out. So if you extrude along this face, it'll remove the face, move it out, and create faces along the other edges. So as you can see, you can create another cube like so, and you can cancel that. And this is where the right-clicking thing causes me to Control-Z almost every time anyway. If you extrude and then right-click, you see these points along the edges? Those are really, really tiny faces. You can't actually see them, not even if you zoom in like so. You can't see them. It's literally, the face is the exact same width as the line, the edge that it's sitting on. So to get rid of that, you Control-Z and it'll move that out. Or you can do over here, there's something called remove doubles. It'll say remove duplicate vertices. So you select the entire thing, remove doubles, and it'll automatically remove those faces for you. So just remember about both of those things. If you have an exceedingly large number of faces, or if you're doing smoothing and it doesn't seem to smooth right, see how many faces you have at that point, or how many edges. because that can greatly alter how your model looks when it gets smoothed over. So now that we have that, we can look at other things. One of the things we've got is we have the ability to change how many faces are along a single face. So if you select this one and press Control R, you'll see that it creates a line bisecting the face like so. You can actually change it by using the scroll wheel on your mouse to 2, 3, 4, or as many lines as you so desire, and it'll change it so that way you have that line. And if you click on it, you can move it. So you can change it to be in the center like it was, or move it all the way to the edge or the other edge, and it'll allow you to create a bisected polygon of that sort. And you can even scale it up, and so that way you can make a sort of rounder thing. So make sure you remember that. Remember to keep it in the middle. You can just click as is, and you don't have to worry about it. Left clicking always activates things. Right clicking usually cancels them, like so. And you can do it for pretty much anything, but be wary, because if you add too many weird polygons that are all connected, it won't work the way you think it will. Now, one of the things you have in the Blender viewport, you have these lights here, which you can only get to in object mode. You have the light, and you have the camera. These two things don't have any effect on TF2 models whatsoever. So you can simply delete them right off the bat. Like, they really don't matter at all. And honestly, the light seems to interact negatively with TF2 models whenever you're doing things. So I would personally recommend deleting them as soon as you begin modeling. And again, you have to select the model first. If it has this orange outline, it's selected, and press Tab in order to go into editing it. So now you have your model that is ready to go. Right now, this is not what I want to start modeling with, so I will just delete the entire cube. And now you have an empty viewport. With this, you can actually import your flare gun model. So you come over here. If you installed the SMD tools that I linked to in the last video, this should be absolutely no problem for you. So you go to Import Source Engine, and you go to the somewhere around here. You go to the folder that houses your flare gun. So temporary output flare gun, and then it'll be cflaregunpyroreference.dmx.smd. Every item can be found in the GCFs. So if you're gonna, remodel a hat, if you're gonna remodel a gun, it'll be in there. So just search for it. If you have no idea what it is, you can probably ask someone, but everything in there is pretty well labeled. There are some things that, like C_picket, which is for the conscientious objector, or various things like that. They have weird names sometimes, but they're still pretty self-explanatory. And some of them even have their old names. So if you get the Natasha, it'll say like Ludmilla in the files, and that's just Valve talk for the Natasha. So with that, we can import this, and you'll see it takes a while, and oh man, we have a flare gun. But this looks pretty weird. It's facing straight up, and it's going to be hard to model something like that. But that's perfectly fine right now, because all we want are the bones. Now, one of the cool things you can see is if you come over here, you can see location, rotation, and scale. You can actually rotate it here, and it'll change the rotation here. And you can even move it by using G, and it'll change the location. Those are going to become important. If you ever seen Helljumper's tutorial on modeling, he tells you to make sure that the rotation and location are both 0, 0, 0 straight down the board. That is why, because if you export it as is, it'll work perfectly in Team Fortress 2. However, if you have the rotation different, it won't work. So what I'm going to do is, to make sure that I've got everything correct, I will rotate it outside of here, so that way when I rotate it back, I will not have any significant changes to it. So if I rotate it, let's see, I will do not 1, 3. If you press numpad 3, and 1, 3, and 7, they change the way you're viewing at it. You either view it with 1 along the YX values, or ZX values, I'm sorry. 3 changes it to the ZY values, and 7 changes it to the YX values. And then you can go from there to see easier things. As you can see, the YX is actually top down, but that doesn't look like it's a top down at all. So that's why we're going to be changing it. So now that we have this, the XY, we can rotate it. As you remember, that will be R, and then you can just type in, I believe 270 will be the correct one, because it's rotating clockwise. Or so if it's rotating clockwise 90 degrees, we'll change it from pointing straight up to pointing to the right. But we want it pointing to the left, so that way it looks like we're actually editing the correct flare gun. So after you press 270, which is 3 rotations of 90 degrees each, you press enter, and you have yourself a correctly rotated flare gun. And this will be a lot easier to edit in the long run. If you want to, you can even change it so that way it's facing towards the right, but at this point it doesn't particularly matter. One of the other things you can note about the numpad is if you press like 1, you can press 4 and 6 to change the rotation by a few degrees, like so. So you can view it from any of the rotations in that particular axis. It rotates the bottom portion, as you can see. If you press 3, it does the same thing. Press 7 and it'll face it down, and again you can rotate it like so. And it does really, really help that way. 8 and 2 move it up and down, as you can see. So that's what you would do in order to view it from different angles without having to resort to using the middle click to rotate it along here. Middle click is really important. Honestly, if you do not have a mouse and you're trying to model, you are going to have a bad time. Because everything in Blender requires the use of 3-button mouse. Left click changes your focus. Right click changes what you're selected to. And middle click changes the angle you view it at. Shift middle click allows you to move the flare gun along the viewport like so. It'll pan it. Ooh, don't right click. Never right click. Right click will just grab everything and move it automatically as if you're grabbing it, but you want to use the grab function instead, so that way you have more control over it. So that's basically everything we've got now. Now that we have the flare gun, as you can see, I'm going to go explore the bones for a little bit, so that way I can show you what each bone does in the flare gun. Because each thing corresponds to something we're going to be putting into our flare gun. So press tab, and you'll come over here and you can see these different tabs over here on the right side. You can see there's no names, there's just a bunch of bars. You come over here to the armature. It looks like a little person. So object data, and you click on names, and it'll show all of the names on the flare gun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what each of these does. You have the weapon bone L. That's going to be what actually connects it to the, I believe, the pellet. That's where it shoots from, which is weird, I know, but it's it comes through there because that's what Valve decided was the best option. The weapon bone, that's actually what connects it to the pyro's arm. You have to have it attached to weapon bone. Every single weapon in the game has a weapon bone attribute to it, and if you do not connect the weapon to the weapon bone, it'll just float there, and if you try to fire it, it won't move. You have weapon bone 2, 3, and 4. Now, weapon bone 2, I believe, connects it to the pyro's other arm. I haven't explored the flare gun's bones quite yet, but each thing connects it differently. I can actually check by going here and looking at these groups. So weapon bone L, select, doesn't select anything, as you can see. Weapon bone 2, that's this one over here. I select that, and it'll select the entire barrel of the gun. So that's where the hinge is, actually. That's how he reloads the gun. So that's going to be where we put the barrel of our gun as well. Weapon bone 4. Weapon bone 4 is this one right up here. Select that. You can see it's just the trigger. That's how he, or not the trigger, the hammer. So that's how he resets the shooting mechanism of the flare gun. We also have a hammer. So, I believe we have a hammer. I can't actually remember now. We may add a hammer. It's a possibility. But the hammer will go right here, and we attach it to weapon bone 4. So we can deselect that. And weapon bone 3, that's one down here, that's the trigger. The trigger, really important, and we can easily attach it to that one. So each of these, as you can see, they're different vertex groups. Every single one of these groups of vertices that we see here, they aren't attached. They are all separate models. So if I came over here and I used Control L, which is to select all linked vertices or faces, it'll select everything that is actually linked together. And as you can see, only the trigger is linked together. So it's okay that your entire model isn't actually connected to the rest of your model, because as long as it's attached to like the weapon bone or something, then it'll be perfectly fine. So like if you select the weapon bone here, it'll select all of this. And this is basically what goes in the Pyro's hand. And it never moves like that. Each of these things has a different way at it. And not to mention the fact that all of this here is, again, part of the same model. It's not attached to anything else. And in fact, this here, that isn't attached to anything else either. I believe this over here, not attached to anything. This here, not attached to anything. It's okay that you have things that are kind of floating around and you kind of compile it into one large model, because not everything has to be attached. And that seems to be a lot of beginner mistakes. If you have everything attached, it can cause problems down the way. Like when you go into your smoothing groups, it just doesn't look nearly as good as this. And when you have these parts here where it's a smooth cylinder and then the handle, people who connect this the handle to the barrel, you'll have this weird sort of smoothing issue going on down there, and people wouldn't be able to figure out why. The reason why is because they're attached, and Blender and TF2 like to smooth things that are attached in weird ways. So if you want it to have a very stark, like flat line, you want to separate those two models. And it's easier to work with if you have every model that's separated kind of with each other. So like this entire part here, the barrel and the sight of the flare gun, all of that, there are 3 different models, but they all kind of correspond to the same vertex group and associate with the same bone. So it works out really, really well. So be careful of those beginner mistakes. You do not want to simply make it so that way all of the models are just automatically connected to each other, or the entire model is just one huge model. It sometimes just makes it look really bad, and in some cases, like with these different bones and all these different vertex groups associated with these bones, it makes it almost impossible to get these bones to work correctly. Jiggle bones are a different story because the whole point is that they jiggle, but with bones that have these animations associated with them, if they're not separate, they usually will not work. It'll break the weapon like crazy, and things won't work correctly. So having separate models for the entire weapon is a good idea. So with that, I can actually come over here and select the entirety of the flare gun, and I'm just gonna kind of move it. Like, I'm gonna move it along this axis, way over here, and it puts it out of the way. It keeps the bones in place. But another thing it does is it allows me to work on getting my my background done. Now, what I do is I come over here, and I believe it's down here, background images, add image. What I do over here is, let's see, yes, I want to select that and open a particular background image. I bet you cannot guess what background image I am going to open right now, assuming I can even find it. Oh no, back. Okay, I'll open up my pictures. Cactus flare concept.png. I'll open that image, and whoa, my concept image is in Blender. I can rotate and it disappears, but if I go back, it'll be in that exact same spot. And it's even facing the exact same direction as the flare gun. So isn't that pretty nice? So one of the things I need to make sure I do is since the flare gun has this very specific way it's layered onto the bones, I want to make sure that my flare gun kind of matches that. So I'll come over here, and I can change the size. So I can change the size to a much bigger size here. I think, let's see, let's go straight to 10 so you have that. Nope, that's not big enough. Let's try 20. 20 seems a bit bigger. Okay, and then I can just change the direction it is. So I can just kind of move it over. I'm doing it kind of slowly because I suck at numbers. I really, truly suck at numbers. So I can move it over here, and you know, it's nice. And then I move it up. Make sure it's all nice. Oh, it's too big, so I go down. And you just kind of move it until you get the spot you want it to be in, and where everything kind of matches. Because remember, we don't want to have problems. So that looks to be about right. Yeah, that seems to be about right. I can even decrease or increase the size a bit more, and everything seems to fit pretty well. And now that I have that, I don't need the flare gun anymore. So I come over here to flare gun. Goodbye. Delete all of it. And look at that. Now it's just my model and the bone structure. And as you can see, you have all these vertex groups. You want to keep vertex groups. Vertex groups are everything in a model. So now that we have that, we are still in edit mode, so we want to get out of edit mode. We have no reason for edit mode. And now that we have this, we can go over here and add a mesh. Now, usually you want to start off with a mesh. You have cubes, you got circles, you got UV spheres and icospheres. UV spheres and icospheres, they both differ. It depends on what you want to do. Icospheres are usually the better bet. UV spheres are weird, so I wouldn't mess with those too much. There are some people who always throw the monkey in there and try to make an item out of the monkey. Those people are lazy, good-for-nothing people. Because it's just right here in Blender. You don't want to use the monkey. So stay away from the monkey. The torus can actually be helpful. I actually use that for a bunch of ring-related things, but you know, the torus can be useful. But try not to use it too much. Cone, cylinders. We're going with the cylinder today. And you'll start off over here. And you have over here in the bottom left-hand corner a bunch of different things that allow you to change how the cylinder is. The different vertices, the radius, the depth. The depth changes, you know, how long it is, and you don't really want to worry about that because you can change that later. The radius, same thing. Changes how big it is. Again, you can change that later by scaling the cylinder. The vertices, however, that one's a harder thing to change. So what you want to do is you want to change the number of vertices to the number of vertices you believe the weapon is going to need. For me, I'm going to have to do a little bit of math right here, so I might speed it up until I have a number. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what? 32 sounds like a good number. I can actually change that if I don't need that many. So let's go with 32. 32 sounds nice. And now that we have a cylinder, let's move it where it needs to be. So we'll move it over here, and then let's rotate it and make it. Actually, let's rotate it this way. Press R and then 90 degrees. Look at that. That is perfect. That is level, and we can change that as necessary, and then scale it up because we don't want it to be that small. Grab it, move it up. And then we want to, this is where things get tricky. So we open up that. Oh wait, let me do something real quick. Grab this, look up here. One thing I forgot. If you do it like I just did, it won't work. So change all these back to 0. 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0. As you can see, it went right back to where it was. That's because I was not in edit mode. Always be in edit mode because all of that can really mess up your model. And then just do it again. So R90, grab, move it over here, scale, move it up, move it down some more, scale a little bit more. Look at that. And this is where things get interesting. This is where I like. So you deselect all of it. You come over here, and you grab that, and you go back to your particular viewport. This is nice. And then you just grab this little arrow, because it'll drag it in the direction of the arrow. And look at that. Drag it right there. Come over here, do the same thing to that one. So you just rotate this way, and you see it disappears every time. But don't worry, because as long as you go back to that little area right there, it'll work just fine. So you just move it out. And look at that. So it's looking a lot better now. This is beginning to look like a flare gun. No, it's not. I'm kidding around. But this is looking a lot nicer. And as you can see, I'm using just some of the really basic things to put it in the right spot. So now that you've got that, one of the things I was looking at was, you know, the cactuses are spiky. So we need to make sure that it has that sort of depth to it. So to do that, we come over here and we're like, this is just very cylindrical right now. This isn't going to work at all. So let's go into edge select mode. And now we can select individual edges. Now, a nice number would be 8. So we have, this is a 32 edge edge cylinder right here. So now that we have a 32 edge cylinder, we can select, let's see, if we're going to do 8, we can select 8 different edges, 4 apart. So 1, 2, 3, that's the 4th right there. So I believe here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one is 1, 2, 3, 4. And look at that. I've selected all of these. And that means we can have this nice little thing where we can scale them in. And this is where things do get tricky, because you're going to be moving them into without trying to scale them along the y-axis. So you press S, and you double-click Y, I believe. No. But see how it goes in and it's acting weird? You can't really go into... You press both Z and X. No. I wish I knew what I was doing. You can scale in... You know, I'm just going to take the lazy way out, and I'm going to scale down like normal. Let's see. Let me make sure I have a good view on this. There. So scale in like so. And now that I've got that, I'm going to have to go into vertex select mode, because what I need to do is make them all even again. So I go over here and see how it's all kind of going in now. That's not what we want at all, because that's not what a cactus looks like. So we come over here and we select each of these individual vertexes, just these vertices here. Some of them won't be selected if you're not looking at them from the right angle. So look, I got all of these now, and I go back over here to 3. And see, that looks weird. That's not how it's supposed to look like. So I can grab this over here and fix it. And again, it's okay if it doesn't look perfect, because it's a cactus. Cactuses are natural looking. And it's okay that they have flaws. So, this is not the best way to go about doing this, but for simplicity's sake, this seems very nice. So you come over here, you go to 3, and then you just kind of scale it out again. And look. That looks pretty nice. But obviously this is not what should be happening. This is not the best course of action here. So, as you can see, I can actually scale 2 vertices, but I cannot scale 1. So, if you select 2 vertices and try to scale them, you can, but you'll only scale them towards their center point. So, you can use that to your advantage sometimes. In this case, I won't be, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these vertices here, and since they all scale towards the center, they'll all scale towards where I want them, like so. Look at that. That doesn't look bad at all. Look at that. I enjoy that. But I'm going to use an actual number, so that way I can do the identical thing on the opposite side. And I'm a weird guy, because there's, things like mirrors and stuff that you can use in here. I don't like using those for the most part, because I don't really know. Oh, not 2. 0.2? Not 0.2 either, so you want like 0.8. Yeah, 0.8 looks good. And that fixes that. And you come over here, do the same thing. So select all of these over here. And then you have select S and then type 0.8. And look at that. Come over here, press 3. It's beginning to look a lot like cactus. Textures everywhere. And it looks pretty nice. I mean, this looks to be close to what a cactus would look like. Kinda close. It's okay. I will probably not be happy with this model when I'm done with it. You guys might like it, and that's all that matters, because if you guys like it, then I can't complain, but I usually am very unhappy with my work. But here's another thing that I needed to show. I'm going to come over here and do something that is, it's an edge select. So select, and it'll be edge ring. No, always get those mixed up. Edge loop. So you come over here, edge loop. And edge ring, it'll take the 2 points and it'll go around that edge, whereas edge loop will take that go around where the edge points. It's just like that. So we're going to go do that bad thing. That bad thing I told you never to do. Extrude, right click. Oh man, look at all those extra faces. That should not be there. Oh god, why did I do this? Because I'm going to go just like so. And what I did there was I took those faces and I scaled inwards. And I can scale even more so, because I still don't really like it. There, look at that. It actually looks nice. And I scaled inwards. And now you can do something pretty crazy, because I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to take this green one and go pull it in, just like so. And look at that. I'm creating a barrel. It's an odd-shaped barrel, but it's a barrel nonetheless. This is a cactus barrel. And this is going to be where things get strange, because I'm going to come here, just like so. And I'm going to go select some faces. And I'm going to remove some faces. And just like so. Come over here. Delete face. And then I'm going to select this face and delete this face too. Look at this. Now that looks weird, and how am I going to do anything about this? This is where things start to get nice. And so what I do is I come over here and I go back to edge select. And this is another shortcut that you need to know at all times. It's the F key, and it automatically creates a face between two lines, like so. Look at this. Every single one of these, they're getting a face, just like so. So it's really nice to have things like this, where you can just kind of, for me, I like just doing it one by one, because it's a stress reliever. Oh god. Control Z. I accidentally used a camera key. That's Shift F. I never hit Shift F. It's a camera. See, I just did it again. You can just hit escape to get out of it. But cameras, they do nothing. You don't really want a camera, because they just you don't need them, is the better way to say it. You don't need cameras when you're modeling TF2 items, like so. I know this is probably not going to be the best tutorial out there. I know that I'm probably teaching some bad habits to those who are actually experienced. But this is just the way I've learned. I've never actually had any formal teaching in any of this. I've tried to get people to teach me, and I've only gotten like the bare minimum for all of this. So with no formal teachings, I think I'm doing pretty well. And most people aren't formally taught anything like this either. But I'm not particularly good at teaching myself things. So I'll teach myself bad habits all day. And people might yell at me for those bad habits. But I'm okay with it. Because what works for me, works for me. Look at this. Now you have yourself a cactus-shaped barrel. And you go to 3. And it actually looks like it belongs. It actually kind of fits. But this is one thing I definitely want to do. Come over here, select everything that you've got. And since we did some weird things with these faces, I'm going to recalculate your normals. Normals, they basically say what faces are on the outside and what faces are in the inside. And so it'll shine like an imaginary light, and if from all directions, all sides possible, and if it doesn't hit any of the sides that could be considered outside, then it will, consider them inside. So there are some faces that'll be weird and cause some weird lighting conflicts, because they're considered inside, not outside. But we don't have that problem now because we just recalculated our normals, and it knows what sides are inside, what sides are outside. And so with the barrel, this seems like a nice stopping point for this video. Basically, the flare gun, this is how you're going to be going about making the flare gun. I'm probably going to make the rest of this flare gun, not on camera, because now that you have a general idea of how to get things done, then you can be able to make your own weapons in no time. But if you're using my videos as the only tutorial to make a weapon, then you're going to have to wait until the next video before I show you how to connect them to these bones. Because I think I've gone over like 30 minutes or so. I'm not entirely sure. So just be wary. I don't know how long it'll take for me to finish this model. But I've got started, and so right now I'm going to save, and make sure you save all the time. So save as, I'm going to be saving this in a new file, so modeling, models, let's create a new folder here. Oh, I did the wrong thing. Show folders. Yes, where's the new folder icon? There it is. Create new directory. Yes. And we're going to call this one Cactus Flare, because I don't know what to call it yet. We're going to come over here and save it in our Cactus Flare, and let's just call this Cactus Flare, and it'll add the blend for us. So save as Blender file, and it's saved. We don't have to worry about anything anymore. We've got it saved. So now I'm happy. I'm happy with what we've got so far, and when we come back from the next video, I'll show you how to connect everything that I've got onto the bones. And in fact, I'll even get to show you how to do a jiggle bone, because the jiggle bone is how we're going to be doing the flower, remember? So this flare gun's even going to have jiggles. So until next time, I will see you guys later. Thank you for watching.